The night sky above Earth was calm, filled with stars that had always seemed so far, so unreachable until one of them moved. It started with a single dot, brighter than the rest, growing larger every hour. At first, astronomers thought it was a comet, then a rogue asteroid, but when it slowed down, changed direction, and parked itself in high orbit over Earth, everyone knew it was something else. It was a ship, massive, dark, and covered in strange glowing symbols that shifted like liquid metal. Within minutes, every satellite picked it up. The world watched in fear and wonder as the object hovered silently, no attempt to communicate, no action taken. Then came the signal. It wasn't sound, but a direct message sent across all frequencies in every major language known to Earth. This is the Zorathian Empire. You are now under our domain. Surrender your planet or face full planetary compliance measures. The message repeated 3 times, cold and sharp, without emotion. Panic spread like wildfire. Cities shut down, militaries mobilized, governments scrambled. Humanity had dreamed of alien life, hoped for peace, but prepared for something else. The United Nations held emergency meetings, but it was the leaders of the major powers, China, the United States, Russia, India, the European Union, who met behind closed doors and made a decision that would mark history forever. For the first time, Earth would speak as one. A reply was crafted. Short, clear, and loaded with meaning. Leave now. This is your only chance. The Zorathians responded with laughter, a low, echoing sound that chilled every listener. You threaten us, the voice said. You are primitives, bound to one planet, using fire and stone compared to our light and stars. As proof of their strength, they fired a single weapon and energy beam from space that tore through the moon's surface, erasing humanity's largest lunar base in a silent explosion. The dust cloud was visible even from Earth, a slow bloom of gray that hung in space like a ghost. The message was clear: surrender or die. And yet Earth remained silent after that. No further warnings, no pleads. Just silence. Days passed. The Zorathian commander, High Warlord Arash, prepared his landing forces, confident this battle would be over quickly. They had conquered hundreds of worlds before. Earth would be no different. But what the Empire didn't know, what they couldn't have understood, was that Earth had been watching the stars for decades and preparing for just this moment. They didn't have faster-than-light ships. They didn't have plasma cannons or energy shields. But they had something far more dangerous. They had fear, unity, and desperation, and nothing was more terrifying than a species with its back against the wall. Beneath the Arctic ice, in abandoned mines, in hidden orbiting stations built under the cover of climate satellites and weather research, Earth's secret projects powered up. Systems that had never been tested. Weapons that had only been theory. Ice systems awakened. Old enemies stood shoulder to shoulder. In the deepest bunker beneath Colorado, a single switch was flipped, and a countdown began. All across the planet, radios went dark, skies grew quiet, and a single thought spread in hushed whispers. The warning was real. The Zorathian fleet, unaware of what stirred below, moved into final positions, their ships blotting out stars as they cast shadows over continents. Humanity had given one warning, and now they waited not to beg, not to negotiate, but to show the galaxy why Earth had never been conquered before. The silence was not fear. It was the sound of something ancient and dangerous waking up. The silence from Earth lasted only 3 days, but for the Zorathian Empire, it felt like nothing at all, a brief moment before their easy conquest. High Warlord Erash sat in the command chair of his flagship, the Imperator's will, staring down at the blue and green planet below. "No movement, no surrender," he said, his voice bored, almost disappointed. "Deploy ground forces in 10 cycles." Around him, officers moved without question, confident this would be another swift occupation. But far below, under the oceans, inside deep mountain ranges, and buried beneath layers of rock and metal, the world was not waiting, it was waking. In the Arctic, beneath a thick sheet of ancient ice, a deep hum began to rise. Frost cracked. Metal groaned. Hidden for nearly 70 years, the Leviathan Protocol came online. A black monolith, larger than a football field, emerged from beneath the ice, shaking off centuries of silence. It pulsed with energy as it climbed into the air, magnetic drives firing for the first time. Its systems had been built from stolen alien tech-crashed objects, recovered fragments, and finished with Earth's own brutal engineering. In the Nevada desert, another monster stirred, a fortress-sized rail cannon hidden inside a mountain, once thought to be a nuclear storage site. The weapon, codenamed Skyhammer, locked onto a target above the Zorathian dreadnought Vexor. At the exact moment its AI registered the ship's orbit path, the cannon fired. A single rod of dense tungsten, accelerated by magnets at hypersonic speed, launched into the sky. It made no sound at first, just a blur. But 30 seconds later, in orbit, the Vexor exploded into bright, burning fragments. Erash stood as the impact report arrived. "What was that?" he asked. No known planet-bound species could do such a thing, not without Starship support. He demanded answers, but none came. Meanwhile, Earth was already in motion. Across cities, thousands of drones rose into the air, swarming like metallic insects. Each carried payloads meant not to damage, but to confuse, to jam, blind, and disrupt. Communications within the Zorathian fleet began to flicker. Their AI cores failed to sync. Their long-range scans showed false targets. Inside Earth's command bunkers, men and women worked in near darkness, eyes fixed on screens, guiding the war from behind cold steel and blinking lights. Assistants whispered tactics. Old generals passed along commands. And everywhere, soldiers prepared. They wore armored suits, powered by systems never shown to the public, moved with speed and strength no normal human should have, and held weapons designed with one purpose: to bring down giants. Earth had spent decades preparing, hiding its best minds not in government offices, but in secret labs beneath schools, deserts, and oceans. They had studied every piece of tech they could find, those few scattered bits that fell from the stars, things others thought were myths. They turned myths into machines. The Zorathian fleet, still massive, still dangerous, finally understood they were under attack. Erash ordered a full assault. Fighters launched. Orbital pods fell to Earth like rain, but each one met resistance. In the skies over Asia, swarms of stealth jets intercepted the drop pods before they reached the ground. In Africa, long-range missile systems hidden in what looked like wind farms tore holes through armored transporters. In Europe, tunnels opened beneath landing zones, releasing wave after wave of autonomous machines, that overwhelmed even the Empire's elite units. Yet the biggest surprise came from space. Earth had no known ships capable of interstellar flight, or so the Empire thought. From behind the moon, a dozen vessels emerged, dark and silent, their surfaces absorbing radar. These were not ships of comfort or beauty. They were built like predators, sharp, fast, and armed with weapons the Zorathians had never seen. They used magnetized hulls to cling to enemy ships, drilled through armor with precision tools, and unleashed swarms of spider-like drones that attacked systems from within. One by one, Zorathian warships went dark, disabled, not from the outside, but gutted from inside like prey. On the ground, human soldiers moved with quiet efficiency. They didn't charge blindly. They struck, vanished, and struck again. Forests became traps. Cities became mazes. The invaders couldn't trust what they saw. Holograms fooled their vision. Echoes mimicked voices. Even the air, filled with charged particles from high-atmosphere jammers, confused their sensors. Hirash, once calm, now roared with anger. "We are the Empire," he shouted. "No one resists us." But Earth wasn't resisting. It was retaliating. The warning had been real. The silence had been strategy. And now, with every system online, with every hidden weapon unleashed, Earth was showing its true face. Not a weak world begging for peace, but a planet filled with survivors, engineers, warriors, and thinkers who had never known surrender, only struggle. Titans had awakened, not monsters of flesh, but minds forged in pressure, steel born from fear and hope, people who never gave up. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the Zorathian Empire began to realize they had made a mistake. A very big one. The burning fragments of the Zorathian dreadnoughts still streaked across the sky when Earth's full counteroffensive began, not with a grand speech or a public show of force, but with thousands of silent, coordinated strikes launched from every corner of the planet. In the streets of shattered cities, in jungles where drop pods had scorched the ground, and in icy wastelands the invaders had deemed uninhabitable, humanity fought not like prey, but like hunters waiting for this exact moment. The first wave of Zorathian ground troops landed with confidence, their tall, four-armed forms encased in armor woven from alloys unknown to Earth, their weapons powered by miniature antimatter cores, their minds augmented by hive-link implants that let them move in eerie synchronization. But confidence quickly became confusion. The cities they landed in, London, Shanghai, Johannesburg, Sao Paulo, were quiet, too quiet. Streets were empty, skies choked with static clouds from electromagnetic dampeners, and no civilians in sight. Then, without warning, the walls of buildings peeled back to reveal plasma turrets hidden behind ordinary facades, garbage bins unfolded into mobile drone swarms, and street lamps powered down as anti-infantry fields surged through the ground beneath the Zorathians' feet. Every inch of terrain had been turned into a weapon. In what used to be Times Square, Zorathian squads advanced toward what they believed was a command center, only to be swallowed by collapsing roads and funneled into an old subway system retrofitted with automated traps. Electric current surged through flooded tunnels. Poisoned air was pumped in and sealed behind magnetic gates. No human soldier was there, only machines, guided by an AI with a calm voice and no mercy. Deep in the Sahara, The Zorathians attempted to establish a communication relay hub, but they didn't know that the sand itself had been laced with thermal sensors and explosive charges. As soon as their equipment deployed, the entire dun exploded beneath them, burying both soldiers and machines in a hellstorm of shrapnel. High in the Andes, a small group of human fighters, wearing camouflaged armor that bent light and heat around them, ambushed an elite Zorathian scout team. The humans moved fast, using jet-assisted jumps between ridges, flanking their enemy with military precision. Their bullets weren't traditional. They were smart rounds, programmed to shift direction mid-flight, each one carrying an algorithm designed to locate and exploit armor weaknesses. In less than 3 minutes, the alien team was wiped out, and not a single human was lost. Across the world, human forces use speed, knowledge of terrain, and clever misdirection to defeat a technologically superior enemy. But it wasn't just brute tactics, it was information. Decades ago, Earth's intelligence agencies began collecting everything they could from intercepted signals and fragments of alien tech that had fallen to Earth long before the public ever knew. Much of it was theory, pieces that didn't make sense until the invasion began and their patterns matched. Now, with the full scope of the Zorathian strategy visible, those pieces became weapons. I-systems ran simulations millions of times per second, predicting troop movements and calculating the best angles of attack. Civilian factories switched overnight to military production, 3D printing ammunition, drone parts, and survival gear around the clock. Underground bunkers served as coordination hubs, feeding data to every resistance cell, every strike team, every sniper hidden in the ruins of a once busy world. Even civilians joined the fight, not with guns, but with code, sabotage, and sheer creativity. Teenagers who had once hacked games for fun now broke into alien communications. Engineers rewired captured Zorathian tech to overload and self-destruct when used. Farmers turned their drones into flying mines. Nothing was wasted. No one stood idle. In space, the battle continued as Earth's prototype fleet, still young but deadly, harassed the larger Zorathian ships with tactics no empire had seen before. Human ships didn't hold formation like traditional navies. They scattered, reformed, faked damage, then ambushed from blind spots. They used asteroids as cover, fired EMP torpedoes to disable shields, and deployed boarding pods carrying cybernetic commandos who tore through ship corridors like shadows. One Zorathian cruiser, the Kravax, was taken by a single human team led by Commander Elia Grant. She and her unit broke through the hull with magnetized drills, moved through vent systems, and disabled life support just long enough to force the crew into emergency lockdown. When they opened the main hatch to fight back, they were greeted with flashbangs and sonic disruptors that shattered their senses. Within 10 minutes, the ship was under human control, its data core already uploading maps and codes back to Earth Central Command. News of the defeat spread quickly, but not fast enough to stop the resistance. By the end of the first week, Earth had destroyed or disabled a quarter of the Zorathian fleet and forced most ground units into hiding. High Warlord Arash watched from orbit, furious and silent. His second-in-command asked if they should request reinforcements from the wider empire. Irash refused. He could not believe that a single world, a so-called primitive planet, had resisted so effectively. "They are not winning," he growled. "They are delaying the inevitable." But deep down, fear began to grow inside him, an emotion Zorathians were trained to suppress. He had seen empires fall from internal weakness, rebellions fueled by myths. And now, Earth was becoming more than a battlefield. It was becoming a symbol. Across the galaxy, whispers had already begun. Other subjugated worlds monitored the invasion secretly, hoping, watching. And when Earth refused to kneel, some dared to believe again. Earth didn't just fight back. It inspired. And that, more than anything, made the Empire afraid. The Zorathian Empire had faced many enemies across the star's mutinous colonies, rival species, even ancient threats that returned from the edge of time, but never anything like Earth. To them, humans had seemed disorganized, fractured by nations, trapped on one planet, and too young to matter. But in their arrogance, they missed the most dangerous thing of all. Earth had studied war for thousands of years, not just in practice, but in thought, in spirit, and in survival. It wasn't the strength of Earth's weapons that changed the tide. It was the way humans thought, adapted, and struck with a kind of chaos no empire had prepared for. The war they had expected was direct, structured, and obedient to rules of strategy. What they got instead was a nightmare of uncertainty, an enemy that never followed patterns, that learned from every loss and struck harder each time. As Zorathian forces regrouped on the African continent, expecting to crush what they believed were the last pockets of resistance, they found entire cities abandoned, only to be swallowed by explosions triggered by pressure-sensitive tiles and doors that led into booby-trapped underground tunnels. In one such city, Dakar, an elite Zorathian unit entered what looked like an empty hospital, only for the power to shut off and doors to lock from the inside. Walls collapsed, revealing hidden machine guns, and gas vents released thick clouds of smoke laced with hallucinogenic chemicals. By the time the unit radioed for extraction, they were already being captured alive by masked soldiers in cloaked armor suits. Meanwhile, in orbit, something stranger happened. Earth's space fleet, still smaller and outgunned, began to disappear from enemy scans. Zorathian ships, confused and unable to track their movements, found themselves hit by invisible enemies. The truth came out too late. Earth had created a system of drone ships that reflected stellar radiation and used gravity slingshots to appear like harmless space debris until they launched their attacks. These ships, codenamed Ghosts, used stealth tech not to hide from vision, but from physics itself. They didn't fly directly. They drifted, moved in curves that looked like sensor glitches. One ghost ship, the Wraith 7, infiltrated the central power relay of the Zorathian flagship fleet and disabled its orbital command node with a precision strike that knocked out communications for over an hour. In that hour, Earth's forces launched simultaneous attacks on 6 Zorathian bases. Each base fell in less than 15 minutes. High Warlord Irash, who once stood proud and certain, now paced in his command center, watching the slow collapse of his campaign. Reports of missing patrols, systems going dark, troops refusing to land it all pointed to something terrifying. The humans weren't just resisting. They were turning the war around. And worse, they were doing it with almost no warning. Each attack seemed to come from nowhere. The Empire's greatest sensors failed to detect the movements. Their AI algorithms, once praised as the most accurate predictors of warfare, were constantly wrong. Irash ordered a full scan of the planet, a pulse sweep that would reveal all underground structures and cloaked units. But Earth had been ready for that too. They fed false data into the scanners, projecting entire armies in locations where nothing existed, while real forces moved beneath the crust in magnetic silent tunnels built with mineral coatings that masked heat and movement. In the middle of all this chaos, a new player entered the war, an Earthborn AI system known only as Helix. Created in secret by a coalition of the world's best minds, Helix was not just a war tool. It was an adaptive intelligence designed to learn enemy patterns, predict actions, and coordinate humanity's global response with near-perfect precision. Helix didn't just help the soldiers. It led them, not as a dictator, but as a silent commander, feeding every squad, every drone, every ship with the exact data they needed in real time. It became Earth's invisible general. When the Zorathians tried to deploy mind-link disruptors, devices meant to shatter human morale by flooding their minds with fear signals, Helix turned their own network against them. The disruptors were hijacked mid-transmission, and instead of fear, they broadcast audio clips of human laughter, battle songs, and mocking messages in perfect Zorathian dialect. Demoralization backfired. Zorathian units reported confusion, anxiety, and even hallucinations of things that weren't there. Earth's psychological warfare had begun. In the Pacific, Earth's naval forces reappeared for the first time in full strength. Submarines that had gone dark at the war's start surfaced with rail cannons mounted like spears, firing payloads that shattered Zorathian seaborne transports. Underwater drones swarmed enemy vessels, crawling over their hulls and detonating with plasma charges. The sea had become a graveyard of enemy metal. All this time, humans never boasted. They never broadcasted victories. They simply fought. Quiet, calculated, and relentless. Every time the Empire tried to adapt, Earth had already moved 3 steps ahead. The Zorathians began to lose not just ground, but belief. Belief in their own supremacy. Belief in their empire's destiny. They started pulling back, consolidating their forces, fortifying their remaining ships in high orbit, and issuing desperate requests to nearby fleets for support. But Earth didn't wait. Earth pushed. And the war they didn't see coming, this quiet, invisible war of minds and machines, was only just beginning. The stars above Earth flickered like cold witnesses as the last phase of the war unfolded, and deep within the silence of space, the Zorathian Empire prepared its final strike, a weapon not of mass, but of message, a pulse wave that could scramble neural pathways in every unshielded human mind. But just before they could fire, their own command systems began to fail, their data streams filled with static, and their long-range comms intercepted. It wasn't sabotage, it was a broadcast. A single signal pulsed through their empire's encrypted network, overriding warnings and rerouting control systems. The source: Earth. Somewhere, somehow, the humans had broken into the deepest levels of Zorathian communication, and they weren't just listening anymore, they were speaking. At first, the message was simple: coordinates, signals, codes. But then it grew into something more: voices, thousands of them, layered together. Soldiers, civilians, scientists, children, all speaking, all reciting the same words in hundreds of languages. We are Earth. We are not afraid. It wasn't just data. It was a final transmission designed to strike at the core of the Empire's pride. High Warlord Arash, watching from the bridge of his damaged flagship, clenched his claws, unable to stop the wave of noise. His technicians tried to shut it down, but every attempt only made it louder. The message was being echoed by every system they once controlled, amplified, reflected, impossible to silence. As Arash gave the order to launch the Mind Scrambler, the targeting interface failed. The weapon's guidance was gone. Earth's Helix AI had infiltrated it completely, feeding false positions and reverse coordinates. When the pulse wave finally fired, it didn't hit Earth. It arced around the planet and struck the Empire's own fleet gathering beyond Jupiter's orbit. In a single blinding moment, 15 capital ships were left adrift, their crews unconscious or dead, their systems fried from within. Irash screamed, realizing too late that Earth had never intended to match the Empire in raw power. They had aimed for the mind. They had studied the Empire, found its weak points, and attacked, not with missiles, but with mirrors bending every strength back onto itself. And now, as Earth's ships rose from the shadow of the moon, not in one direction, but in a wide arc, dozens of them emerging from stealth fields, the end had come. On the ground, human forces surged forward, coordinated by Helix and guided by leaders who had grown from resistance fighters into legends. Commander Elia Grant led the final assault on the Zorathian ground hub in the Himalayas, flanked by drone swarms and mech infantry. The base, once believed invincible, fell within an hour. In orbit, Earth's fleet closed in on the remaining ships, not with demands, but with silence. The Zorathian crews surrendered without a fight. The war was over in every practical sense, but one final act remained. Earth knew that the Empire's core worlds, far across the stars, would demand explanation. They would not believe that a single planet had done this. So Earth sent one last transmission, one message crafted not as a warning, but as a truth. It contained video footage of every battle, intercepted messages, decrypted files, and the voice of Helix narrating the full story. It spoke of strategy, survival, and the unbreakable will of a species that never stopped learning. It ended with a simple phrase: "We were underestimated. That was your last mistake." The message pulsed out into deep space, aimed directly at the throne world of the Empire. It would take weeks to arrive, but Earth knew they would listen. And across the stars, in dark places where rebellion stirred and silence had ruled for too long, others would hear it too. The war for Earth had ended, but the war for the galaxy had just begun.